Okay, so this one might be a little bit more out there than other stuff I'm going to be talking about on this channel, but it's something that I want to cover because I'm just kind of fascinated by it. If you haven't heard of the series The Chosen, it's a biographical drama about Jesus that began in 2017. It's already established a sizable audience before heading into theaters, which is what we're really going to be talking about today. But by the end of 2022, 108 million people worldwide had already watched the first episode of the first season. One of the things that makes this show so interesting to me is that Angel Studios, which we're going to talk about just here in a couple of minutes, but they put this show out pretty much every season since the third one, I believe, in chunks of episodes into enough theaters screens like across the country for people to go out and watch them before they hit television screens. And the thing is people actually show up to the tune of tens, if not, several $1 million per episode chunk and per screening, per season. That's bringing in this studio about 20, maybe even $30 million per season. And that's just in the theatrical take of these episodes being put together and thrown out on theaters as big movie events. And that's all before all of this comes out on television, streaming services, DVD and Blu-ray sales, and all the other ways that television these days makes money for studios. And quite frankly, a lot of this is fascinating to me. I'm going to put a caveat here saying I don't know. This is pure speculation. I'm not reporting news, and I'm not necessarily throwing facts at you. To me, it feels like this could either be a genuine groundswell of people who are desperately seeking content like this semi-biographical, based on the Bible retelling of Jesus' life, to the ultra-religious in this country who are willing to give money to all of this type of content because they feel like they're being underserved in a media market. And so they go out there and they pay money for The Chosen or God's Not Dead or any of the other, personally, in my opinion, slop that's being put out there to kind of funnel their money from like a religious aspect. That's neither here nor there. Or, again, just putting a big asterisk on this and saying this is just my opinion, I have no idea, but this is just astroturfed into oblivion, and this is just money being funneled into a theatrical system to make it seem like there is support here more than there really is. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but I wanted to get back to Angel Studios, the company that achieved huge success at the box office last year with Sound of Freedom, a film championed by the right-wing Conservative Party as something of a cultural phenomenon that surpassed $250 million at the worldwide box office last year, most of which coming from North America, and marred with the fact that the movie itself allowed for people to buy tickets for other people who wanted to watch the movie and get free tickets. It's something that we've never really seen before, and it's something that has been on my mind ever since. Because if that was something that really worked, why haven't other studios pushed for this for every iteration of movies, not just religious-based movies, but for horror movies and adventure movies and stuff like that? Hey, I really like this. I want to support it with my money. I'm going to put it out on theater screens and hopefully somebody can get a free ticket and discuss it with me online or have a perspective on it that maybe I didn't have. And there's going to be more and more people talking about it because the bar of entry is literally zero. You just have to go on a website, get a free ticket, go to your local cinema, and watch it on your own time. That's literally the only thing anybody is asking from you. Now, to be fair, when we're talking about a genuine crowd swell, talking about people who want to fund projects and watch projects that were specifically made for them, then we do have to talk about how The Chosen was a previously crowdfunded project in partnership with Angel Studios, where at least 16,000 people gave at least $100 to finance the series' first season. And as the Wall Street Journal reported, as of 2021, more than $40 million had been raised for the series to produce 3 seasons of the 7 planned for this show. The same also can be said about The Sound of Freedom, producing at least $5 million from 7,000 donors over its crowdfunding program. So obviously, if we're taking everything as it's been presented to us, it does kind of make sense. People are putting their money where their mouth is. They want to see content produced and made solely for them. They're willing to pay for its production as well as pay to see it and experience it on the big screen. That doesn't seem so detrimental, but to me it's a little bit interesting because it feels like every time this happens, it only happens in one general direction. All signs of small dollar donations, all signs of genuine groundswell support to watch independent media based solely on a mindset or perspective from any group in the United States is always focused on the right, and it's always focused on a religious aspect of the right, primarily Christianity. And far be it from me, especially as a content creator and one as small as I am on this platform, to be the one to say, I don't think any of this makes sense. I don't think that there's enough people, enough groundswell to not only support an ongoing series like this in so many ways as being genuine box office successes at the theater, as well as on television and in physical media at this point, to not only guarantee 7 seasons of a television show, but an entire multimedia universal brand of content based around this particular series, but also enough money to justify the prospering of a particular studio that seems to only want to cater to one specific audience. Frankly, from my perspective, there's been way too many things over the last couple of years that have pointed to a deliberate effort from the people with money to funnel things into various media brands, online content streams, or personalities to give the impression there is a genuine interest in push and pull for this type of content that can be expressed or appreciated by a lot of people more so than what would otherwise make sense. And I might be pushing here, I might be even insulting a couple of people, and I'm trying not to do that. If you like this show, if you like watching it in the theaters, if you like watching it on television, or you buy the DVDs at Walmart, God knows I've seen them, then that's totally fine. I have no problem with that. The reason I get a little bit anxious about talking about this as if it's some kind of genuine success or public support around these specific projects is because you don't see them being implemented by other brands and entities. We've seen over the last several years so many brands, not the least of which are things like Paramount or Universal or any of these other brands, putting hundreds, tens of millions, hundreds of millions into multiple different avenues on their streaming platforms. And these are studios with long-standing histories with the theater chains. They can literally promote things and push them out quicker and easier than something like The Chosen in multiple episode batches on theater screens. And yet they don't, because it doesn't seem like it's a viable enough alternative for them. And they would rather not promote that stuff in the same way as they would through just streaming avenues. And to me, I think that's a little bit suspect. Obviously, with religious content like The Chosen, there's so many different avenues from mega churches and all this other stuff that has just grassroots support across people who go to service every weekend and hear about this stuff, see this stuff in big, large groups that is not necessarily a traditional go to the theater and watch something type of situation. But to me, I think that goes into my point here. These type of things are being bought by mega corporations or mega churches to be fed to their congregation, and not necessarily people showing up on their off time to pay for something that would otherwise be on television and going and watching it. Otherwise, I think we would see this all the time. For what it's worth, AMC, for all the stuff that they did to make the Rick Grimes Walking Dead movies over the last several years, if you're sitting there and telling me that in 2023 and 2024, The Chosen is putting out 2 or so episodes at a time and making 10 or 15 million dollars based on that support alone from people who would just literally like pick themselves up, go to their local movie theater and watch pretty much a cut together version of 2 episodes of a show that they could otherwise watch on their television screens because they were just genuinely interested and wanted to do that, and this money wasn't coming from anywhere else, then I don't see a problem with AMC or Showtime or anybody else putting up their biggest content, putting it on a theater screen an entire season, like a week or so in advance, and then just letting it sit there and make $10 million per 2 episodes, right? If this was a viable business model, something that could be replicated, and it should be replicated. If this is real, it should be replicatable. I would see them doing that, but it's not happening. It's never going to happen because I think a lot of this is fake. I think a lot of this is just a big money donors, big churches trying to put their money into what is by and large a propaganda machine. And I kind of hate that. I mean, I love it for a box office perspective. I think in slow times, you need something to kind of fill the slots. I love the fact that this is at the very least keeping theater chains profitable for when there's not a whole lot going on, especially when these movies were coming out during the strikes and everything. Like, obviously that was helpful, but for what it's worth, they're not worth looking at. They're not worth paying attention to. And any real cultural traction that they have can, and I would take them with a grain of salt. These aren't real, genuine people putting their money where their mouth is. Maybe some of them, but the vast majority of them are just rich assholes trying to push agendas, push a concept of cultural identity, and trying to literally like sway your opinion. And I kind of hate that, but I think that's just really where we are right now, and I wish not.